Good morning, young friends. Happy Holi to all of you from wherever you're joining. We're going live this morning. Visited holiday Holi and 1 minute ahead of schedule so that we can have these pleasantries before we get on to the real business of addressing the IAS aspirants, especially those who cleared the mains examinations. So welcome. This is a live interaction and we are going live on the triple handles of Facebook, my personal page, and irrespective of whether you're friends or not, you can watch, join, post comments and live, and it'll be my intention to answer and address those questions after we've had this short talk, which I do not intend to linger on too much. Friends on Twitter can watch it live, but they cannot either read the comments or write the comments. And people on YouTube can both write comments real time and read the comments which other friends who are watching may be writing. So here we go. First of all, congratulations to all the young friends, young men and women, youth of this country that have qualified the mains examination, the results of which was declared by the UPSC last evening. So they had actually stated that a little while ago that result would be declared in the last week of March. So here, yesterday evening, they have declared the results. It's available online, and therefore all the friends who qualified, congratulations to them. Those who have not been able to make it towards the end of this talk, I think I'll be giving some tips for those who have not been able to qualify for the interview. What's the strategy for them? And also the strategy for those who have really exhausted their last chance. So just let's get on with the laser focus of talking about the interview. So I'm not going to get into the technicalities. Everyone knows, especially those who are going to appear for the interview, that the mains examination, which is a written examination, a bulk of the weightage is there, and interview will make only that much difference. But remember, in a statistical distribution curve, interview is going to make pretty much all the difference. Ask me why. Firstly, in a competition and a national competition like this, people are so closely cluttered and clustered with each other that a mark here, 2 marks there can make all the difference. They can make the difference whether you're going to be selected or not. They can make the difference between the type of service you're going to land up with. Are you going to be in the Indian Administrative Service or the Indian Audit and Account Service? And also whether within the same service where you shall be placed. So that is determinant and ultimately going to be the deciding factor into depending what state cadre you're going to get. And also part of your All India seniority. So if you're really gunning at the top post in Government of India, your All India seniority in this examination is going to make a lot of difference. And this interview, which is the final phase, the last phase, the climax of all the preparation that has been done, this is going to make all the difference. So therefore, I have emphasized the importance, and this importance cannot be overemphasized. But more importantly, please don't allow yourself to be overawed by this. Many people who've taken the written examination, they say, you know, it was studious, I was doing so at my own pace, in my own space. And sir, now I'm going to appear before this interview. You know, I am not very good at English. I'm not very good at Hindi. I'm not very good at verbal and spoken communication. So that is something which you have. Now, don't allow that to pull you down, because at the end of the day, the UPSC board is only trying to assess what's the best in you. So therefore, while you don't have to be overawed, you can't afford to keep it a casual affair. You can't say, hey, it's just like a conversation. I'm going to go to the UPSC, have a 30-minute chat with some wise old man sitting there, and I'm going to walk out of it. So neither. So take it seriously, be earnest, don't look bored, don't look casual, don't give a look of arrogance. Smart dressing is okay. You want to wear a tie for gentlemen and a blazer a cool blazer in the heat of Delhi, please do so. Ladies, generally, it's recommended that you wear a sari, but if you're comfortable with a suit, salwar kameez, and a dupatta, very fine. So they are not really concerned, as long as you are dressed smart casuals, I would say. But I would still recommend full sleeve shirts for gentlemen, and of course, Sikh boys and Sikh gentlemen, a nice turban if you are sporting long hair. Now, people ask me whether coaching helps. I would only say that coaching helps, yes, if you take the right type of coaching. But if you are confident with yourself, then coaching is neither the necessary nor the sufficient condition. In fact, by running from pillar to post from one coaching institute to the other, going through mock interviews, will perhaps confuse you and not leave you any wiser. So therefore, if you really want to have a mock interview or two, do so. But ultimately, they can only spruce you to that extent, and don't waste unnecessary time and money trying to go in for those type of interviews. But in this day and age, when people are arranging interviews through a distance or virtual mode, always good, because it kind of puts you through a full dress rehearsal. That's it. Now, as I said, this interview is supposed to bring out the best in you. So people generally say, my mains examination I have done, I prepared in geography, my PhD was in English literature. Is the board going to be bothered as to what my qualification was or not? Depends on your CV, what stands out. I mean, if you've done a PhD on Thomas Hardy, even if you have not taken English literature as one of the electives in the mains examination, you're bound to get some questions, because people are going to gauge whether what Thomas Hardy was all about. I have sat on the UPSC board in, not of course the mains examination for direct recruits, but where you pick up officers from the non-state civil services. And in one particular case, a candidate was supposed to be PhD in English literature, and more particularly Thomas Hardy. And the question which I put was whether on the map of England, would you be able to point out where Wessex is? And Wessex is the county in which all the Thomas Hardy novels were set. And the candidate was a bit confused and said, okay, it would be here, South England, and so on and so forth. Whereas the answer was that Wessex is a fictional or a fictitious or an imaginary county, and therefore there was no question of its being found on the map of England. So irrespective of the performance of the candidate elsewhere, it immediately creates an impression that even the strongest area in which you have spent 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, a most fundamental question you're not able to answer, that does create a wrong impression. So don't say it was unexpected of the board to ask me questions on my educational background. I was not prepared for it. If you've done a postgraduate degree in physics, there is every likelihood that someone is going to ask you that question. So, as I said, this is supposed to bring out the best. And generally, the UPSC board is headed by a member of the Union Public Service Commission who presides over the board. And Then there are members around from all walks of life, retired civil servants, literary people, retired IPS officers from very senior positions, university professors, psychologists, so on and so forth. Even retired army generals are a part of the interview board. And therefore, the chairman kind of controls the whole interview. And he starts off, and that really sets the tone, and then passes you around, and you are supposed to answer the questions. Please do maintain eye contact, especially with the member who has asked you the question, but always good to turn around like a pedestal fan in other directions. But the focus should be on the member or the chairman who's asked you the particular question. Please speak clearly, slowly. They are not going to test your speed. I mean, it should not be like a dhimi gati samachar. I went to Yadavendra Public School, Patiala. At the same time, it should not be, very fast. I went to Yadavendra Public School, Patiala. That means, your audio has been put up by a factor of 1.5. Normal tone as we are talking, I think that is perfectly all right. Not too fast, not too slow, but more important is clarity. So be clear, irrespective of whether you are speaking in Hindi, in English, or whatever language they permit you. That is very important. And I'm not sure what is the policy regarding the mask. I'm sure your mouth would not be covered, but previously they used to have those transparent visor-like masks. But I think with the situation having improved and the board kind of sitting at a significant distance may not be allowed, but that is something you got to take care, especially 6 gentlemen, in putting that big mask. Sometimes you manage to disturb your turban, and in case of ladies, your dupatta or hairstyle or hairpin or whatever. It's very, very important. Please do it outside and don't try to, put on your mask before the interview board while you get in there. Now, as I said, the board is going to talk about various things, where you come from as in what's your background, what are you doing, are you already a serving IAS officer, why do you want to take the interview again, why do you want to get into IAS, those type of answers you should be willing to give. But I'll come to that point later. But what is relevant here is, they say, what are the current events? Of course, current events is something which you have to always be ready with. I mean, it's expected that you will have read that day's newspaper, figuratively speaking, of course, online breaking news and so on and so forth. You are presumed to have read. But let us say an interview was taking place, and if I were on the board, I would definitely come in for some topical questions. I'll give you 2-3 examples how it was done. But let me first of all say that in many cases, they ask you your opinion. Now, opinion, you're entitled to your opinion. There are 2 things very important. So there are situations they may pose you. There are no right or wrong answers in those. They're asking for your opinion. Now, there are 2 things very important regarding opinion, and I would say 2.5. And the third one is actually the most important. What is the first one? First one is, fine, you're entitled to an opinion. Please give reasons. So you have to give logical, cogent, rational reasons. You cannot give whimsical answers, it's my free will type of thing. That's a sure disaster to be graded an F, which is a failure. So fine, you've given a particular set of reasons and you justified an opinion. But it is very likely the board is going to rotate and come back after 2 or 3 questions and pose you and say, Mr. Sidhu, previously you said that India is a non-aligned nation, and now vis-a-vis Sri Lanka, we are doing this, vis-a-vis Afghanistan, we are doing this, vis-a-vis Ukraine, you are doing this. So aren't your 2 questions contradictory? So therefore, if you have an opinion, please express it if asked. And if your opinion must be justified, and you cannot contradict yourself. It should be mutually supportive in different circumstances. So let's say the interview was happening today and I was sitting there. What I would do is that one rank, one pension Supreme Court has upheld. And especially if you are with an ex-serviceman background or your father went to army, you could be very, very prepared to be asked this question. So be very clear. I had recently uploaded a YouTube video and I had not done any research before that, but half an hour of reading. What is this one rank, one pension? So you should be able to answer in one word. I would say what they're saying in principle is that people who have retired from the same rank with the same number of years of service would get the same pension irrespective of when they retire. And then you kind of give examples that a captain retired after 25 years of service in 1990, and another captain also retired with the same number of years in service in the year 2013. They would, ideally speaking, draw different pensions because they had the last pay drawn, which was different. But this scheme at least gives you the same pension for the same rank for the same number of years of service, irrespective of when you retire. And of course, there could be follow-up questions, but then this is not about Fauji pensions. Then you could be asked a question about the Karnataka High Court's hijab judgment. You could have opinion either way, but more importantly, they would ask you a constitutional perspective, that how have they interpreted the freedom of religion under Article 25? How have they interpreted right to equality under Article 14 and 15? What about this freedom of expression? Hijab, the headscarf of a Muslim lady, is it supposed to be a freedom of expression, or is it trying to delve into your privacy, Article 21? So please read, if not the entire judgment, the bullet points. I had also a YouTube video on that, highlighting and delineating the viewpoints. Now, the tricky part would be, do you agree with it or not? Now, this is very important. You can't skirt the issue and say, well, it's gone in appeal to the Supreme Court and not. And you could be asked a question, well, you're a Sikh gentleman, tomorrow they could say turbans are not going to be allowed. So those type of tricky questions, generally they don't try to entangle and embarrass you, but you need to have a very clear opinion. And my advice at this stage is that we are not here to express radical views, because remember, you're being interviewed to be a civil servant who's supposed to be neutral, objective, above any caste, creed, religious affiliations. So one would say, yes, the institutional discipline is far more important than religious symbolism, so on and so forth. But they could then come out back and answer that tomorrow, are you going to wear this kada? Will a bindi be allowed? And so on and so forth. But knowing the basics and an opinion thereon. Similarly, something tricky like Kashmir Files, what do you feel? Have you seen the movie? What is it about? If you've not seen the movie, what do you feel about it? How are the people reacting? What's your reaction? What was the history of it? So anything which is topical, it is bound to really crop up. There is no doubt about it. And similarly, Ukraine. So you not only need to know who Zelensky is, you not only need to know what is the Russian invasion and who Putin is, but a brief background from the disintegration of the Soviet Union, how they annexed Crimea, what is NATO, and how NATO really was trying to expand into literally under the Russian Federation, and what is the difference between European Union and Eurozone, and so on and so forth. What does NATO mean? Does an attack on a NATO country mean an attack on all? It's a declaration of war. So that's very important. But again, a question that would come would be very clearly and simply, how did India vote in the Security Council resolution? And how did India vote in the resolution in the General Assembly? It's a different matter. They would have been vetoed either way by Russia itself, and the resolution of the General Assembly is more a reflection of the international opinion and doesn't really carry any weight. So India, of course, needless to say, abstained and did not vote either for or against. And so there could be a question, and you could say that, keeping in view our strategic ties with Russia and keeping in view that we are not really in the immediate neighborhood, so we kind of had a middle of the road strategy, and that is what India has done and rightly done. I don't think it pays to be too critical of the government decisions, especially central government decisions, when you're appearing for a UPSC interview. Maybe if you're being interviewed for BBC or CNN for their editorship for South Asia, I mean, you could perhaps be, given brownie points by speaking against the government policy. But here, I think, by and large, you should be able to support with reasons the government policy of abstaining. At the same time, come out with something additional to say that fine, yes, but at the same time, we should constantly review, engage ourselves, like, for instance, Israel is doing. I mean, Israel is friends of both, and they are trying to broker out a kind of peace and package deal. And so, as I said, once this interview comes, people go in for coaching institutes. Sometimes you've already taken coaching from Britain. You go to the same institutes or other institutes, mock interviews. We were in the Mahatma Gandhi Punjab State Institute of Public Administration, which is a Punjab government body. We were running a civil service training center, and I, as a director general, of course, I retired in July last year. We had almost a pro bono type of interviews for students from Punjab, Chandigarh, and Haryana who had qualified. And those mock interviews really helped because, we not only got, senior officers sitting as chairman, we also got youngsters who had appeared for that interview, a couple of years ago, Punjab cadre officers who would bring in fresh perspective. And I'm sure that the Mahatma Gandhi Punjab State Institute of Public Administration in Chandigarh would still be doing that. You can contact them, and I'll leave behind my email also. I can put you in touch with them, though having superannuated from the service, I am not either affiliated with them or, for that matter, affiliated with any other agency as such. This is purely a personal individual effort on a pro bono basis that I'm doing here. So therefore, the other thing is that sometimes, very well-meaning people, your own teachers, your parents, close relatives, siblings, who may be educated, who may be in civil service, who may actually be, have gone to a different, in a profession or vocation, they would give you unsolicited advice. Aise nahi karna, aise karo, do it this. I mean, this is going to leave you confused. Please keep away from unsolicited advice. There is going to be a lot of noise, as I said, in metaphorical terms, in figurative terms, in literal terms. So you have to maintain your inner balance and peace and kind of retrieve and retreat from the situation and kind of prepare for this interview. Be there a day in advance. Don't take the chance of stay in a comfortable place. Be there at least 1 hour in advance, comfortable clothes. You want to carry your own sandwich, please do so. You're not used to cold water, please carry your own RO water or whatever. These small little things can make all the difference. For instance, if your throat is bad, I carry this Swarin all around. It's not my business to be advertising for it, but those type of things do carry so that you do not, feel either dehydrated or desiccated when facing the interview board. So having said that, once this is over, well, there are two things. If you get through and get through to the IAS, congratulations to you. And people would say, Hey, I made it, now perpetual holiday. Nothing could be farther from the truth. You made it. Heartiest congratulations. You are among a very elite intelligentsia youth of the country who've gone through the toughest, arguably the toughest competitive examination in the country. But this is not the end. This is not even the beginning of the end. At best, it is end of the beginning. So actually, when you join the Missouri Academy, the 2 years of rigorous training, including the foundation course, thereafter, the long, arduous journey of civil service upwards, that's going to start. People are going to be judging you literally on a daily basis. The press, the Right to Information Act, the media, the social media, the political executive, your juniors, subordinates, colleagues. So you are going to be tested literally on a daily basis. So this is only the end of the beginning. And those who don't get through still have chances, want to take the examination again. It's kind of back to the drawing board. I would hate to say, but it is disappointing. It's nobody's case that you don't make it after going to the interview level, that, if you take it in a stride, nothing chalta hai types. It is disappointing. But take a break, 1 day, 2 day, 15 days. And after that, learn from the lessons of the mistakes that you made. Don't hope over them. But if you can draw any lessons that, in one particular written examination paper, as the results would eventually tell you, give you the detailed marks, till now you didn't know, they will eventually reveal you the interview marks, you would be able to kind of introspect yourself and get a specific answer for yourself. Where did I lag behind? So in any case, good or bad, whatever happened is not going to be carried to the next examination. These are not like the credits of karma ko agle janam mein aapke paap aur पुण्य साथ जाते हैं. Of course, you've learned something, learn from the mistakes, but if you did extraordinarily well in a particular paper, you have to repeat that. I mean, you can't rest on your past laurels. So back to the basics, preserve your strength, and at the same time, go in for plugging the weaknesses that emanated during your current performance. And then there is one question which always comes back. Of course, I have got a short YouTube video which I recorded last year. This was about, what if you ultimately don't get through? I mean, it's a competitive examination. Lakhs of young men and women appear, and not everyone eventually makes to any service, allied service, even a Group B service. What then? And especially the parents who admit their sons, daughters, and wards to various coaching institutes, including the one like we had, would ask, कि तैयारी की, मेहनत की, 2 साल वेस्ट कर दिए, 3 कर दिए, अब क्या होगा बच्चे का? Let me tell you, if you've sincerely gone through this examination, if you've sincerely gone through this particular rigor, you would be a transformed individual. So irrespective of the vocation, the profession that you ultimately choose, you could be setting up your own startup, you would be getting into the corporate sector, you're an MBA, going to economics, teaching profession, self-employed, family business. I can tell you one thing, that any young person who has taken the civil services examination, he or she is a much better individual. The sense of rigor and discipline it puts into you, you're well informed, you can discuss issues, and above all, you will be a better citizen. So these are, friends, the points which I wanted to share with those people who are taking the interview, and also those who intend perhaps to take the interview, those who could not qualify this time but are intending to take the examination again, and also most importantly, even the parents whose children are appearing would be well advised to at least listen to this. So I'll also leave behind my email, or you can leave the comments here on Facebook, on YouTube, and I'll be happy to answer the question. There is a live comment. Let me see if I can get on the board. Yes, you asked, due respect that absolutely good. So this is the quintessential debate between specialism and generalism. Just like an MBA, a person who's an MBA, he's taught how to manage a business. Whether that business is about Unilever and running fast-moving consumer goods or oil explorations, ultimately you get into the basic management skills. And also you'll realize that if you're running a hospital, if you're running an education institution, ultimately you require much more than merely being a doctor to run a hospital. Some of the people are very good doctors, but they say, okay, I'm a good doctor, I'll leave the hospital management to the professional colleagues who have an area of interest in that. So Richie, this is a debate which you can go on, but I think the idea of this particular talk was that given the system, if you're taking the examination, if you're preparing for the interview, then this is the way to go. If you feel that as a master's in English literature, you are not willing to be a district collector, or you're not willing to be posted as joint secretary in PWD, irrigation, juvenile system, or whatever, then you are at liberty not to appear for the examination. But as long as this system is prevailing and the system is constantly reviewed, there are questions of lateral entries at Joint Secretary Government of India level and so on. There is also a kind of a specialization and within the cadre, people tend to stick, especially in Government of India posting, in the area in which they've built up some expertise. But having said that, the Indian Administrative Service in particular is a generalist service, but there are specialist service. The same civil service examination is going to give you an IPS, an Indian Audit and Account Service, and Indian Income Tax Service, the Revenue Service, and you could extend the debate. वहाँ भी कि पुलिस ऑफिसर लॉ एंड ऑर्डर भी है जी, तो इन्वेस्टिगेशन अलग है and cyber crime alag hai. Similarly, income tax assessment is one thing, investigation raids is another thing, and you want to have international taxation, it is another thing. So specialization is going to exist in every discipline, but broadly, just like a master of business administration is supposed to look at and look after all aspects of the administration, and therefore similarly the IAS does that. Otherwise, you could extend the same logic to say that the minister पढ़े लिखे नहीं है तो वो कैसे करते हैं. That is the constitutional system in which you are living. So, friends, thanks for joining this morning. I'll be happy to answer any further questions. Let me see if I can put my email on the ticker. Yes, this is the email. I'll be happy to answer any questions you send me here or leave in comments in terms of the YouTube or Facebook comments. I'll be also happy if you can share this tube, if you this video, the link of this video, to people, to groups for whom you think it could be useful. And if you're looking forward to further such talks, then do subscribe to the YouTube channel and have a great Holi. Thank you for joining.